So last week, I reported that the UK government announced that they were going to pay up to 80% of workers' wages during the coronavirus pandemic. And then a few days later, he came out and announced that the self-employed would be getting up to 80% of their income as well. How this is going to get rolled out, we don't know, but they're basically saying the first payments will be going out in June, which is 2 months away. So even before we get any relief, it's going to be a while before we get it. I'm not sure. I think the workers will get paid, but self-employed are going to have to wait another month. All of this was great, I thought, at the time, because it was almost like, they'd done what I was calling for at the beginning of the last week, which was to press pause on the economy, because obviously people were going to be really in trouble. But it does beg a question, doesn't it? Because they've sorted out the workers who are sitting at home, and they've sorted out the self-employed people who are sitting at home and can't earn. But what about the people who are actually going out to work and having to work during this pandemic, putting their health on the line? Which poses a question, as I put on Twitter here. Have essential workers gotten anything in the last few weeks with regards to a large pay increase, better working conditions, an end to 0-hour contracts, etc.? Or do they just get a round of applause? Because, as you probably saw, the UK went out the other night and gave them a round of applause, the NHS, and then a few nights later they gave the essential workers a round of applause. But they haven't actually gotten anything from the government, as far as I can see. And these are the people that are actually out there doing work at the moment. People sitting at home, they got 80% of their wages paid. But what about the people actually doing the work? They haven't gotten anything. Now, some supermarkets have basically given them a £1,000 bonus. They give the workers a £1,000 bonus, etc. Or they're giving them an extra little bit during this time. And that's all great. But it's all temporary, from what I can tell. There's nothing actually concrete going forward. So what about, an end to 0-hour contracts, which are a scourge on the working class? What about better working conditions or a large pay increase? We haven't seen any of those, have we? 40 years of neoliberal policies have destroyed our health system. Our doctors and our nurses at the moment, who are on the front lines and who are actually in the battle zone of this virus, putting their lives and the lives of their families at risk, because they're actually doing it without PPE, because we weren't prepared, even though scientists have been saying for years that this was probably going to happen. It was inevitable. They've been screwed, these people have, for 40 years of neoliberal policies. These doctors, junior doctors, are paid pittances, nurses are treated terribly. Then you got the cuts through austerity over the last 10 years. It's pretty sick. Makes the NHS unattractive to British people. Makes it unattractive for them to want to come and work here. So the NHS then goes and gets people from abroad to come and work here. And then, lo and behold, you find out that the names of the first 3 NHS doctors who died protecting us from COVID-19 were Amjad El-Hawani, I apologise if I get these names wrong, Adel El-Tayar and Habib Zaidi. Bloody foreigners, eh? Coming over here, stealing our jobs and then dying because they've contracted a virus. It's not just austerity that has caused this. It's not just austerity that has left our NHS on its knees. Like I say, it's 40 years of neoliberal policies. Not just the Tories with their austerity over the last 10 years, but it's also, Tony Blair with his PFIs, and he's making the National Health Service unprofitable so that they can then say, see, it's unprofitable, we need to privatise it and sell it off to America. There's a great movie done by Dr. Bob Gill called The Great NHS Heist that talks all about that. And obviously before Tony Blair, you had Thatcher before them with the neoliberal policies. This is what has screwed our NHS. For decades it's happened, and now those NHS workers are on the front lines battling this terrible virus during a pandemic with no PPE, and nothing from the government so far as I can tell to say that things are going to get any better for them when they come out of this on the other side. Sent in there without PPE and then gagged from actually telling the media about the shortages. That's what's happening right now. These workers are going out there in the NHS, putting their lives at risk, and they're getting bupkis in return. Everybody else has got something, not the workers though. What about the Amazon workers? Is it any better for them? Because, I mean, Amazon's obviously it's making a fortune right now. Is it any better for them? No, of course not. These essential workers. Well, I think they're called essential because essentially they will get no money at the end of it. The shop assistants, the lorry drivers, the home delivery people, they're not going to get anything, are they, at the end of this? They're not going to get any improvements. They just get a round of applause. Seemingly that's all they're going to get. The people who are really the lifeblood of this country, the people who have really got the real important jobs, the people who are on the front lines at the moment, keeping us alive and keeping us fed, are the very people that have been screwed the most over the last 30, 40 years, aren't they? We're finding out which jobs are really important during this time. Austerity has led these workers to have lower pay, worse conditions, and has obviously given them, not a contract, but 0-hour contracts where they don't know day to day whether they're actually going to be going into work. And so far, all they've got is a round of applause. And then you've got to ask, who is doing well out of this crisis? Who is doing well out of it? Think about it. Amazon. That's who's doing well out of it. Can you imagine? I mean, I haven't seen the figures, but can you imagine Prime membership's going to be going through the roof right now, isn't it? With everybody at home and nothing to do. And imagine Amazon Prime with their wide range of programs. Imagine they're going through the roof. Obviously, Audible subscriptions, books, etc. They're going to be going through the roof. Obviously, food deliveries. The Amazon food deliveries are going to be much higher than they were. Everything is going to increase through their delivery service, isn't it? They've already profited from the panic buying, the toilet paper, etc. You can imagine now with plenty of families at home, how many wives are at home badgering their husbands right now to put up that wardrobe and ordering the, decorating equipment, etc., home improvements while they're at home. All of these things are going to be getting done, and Amazon is the company that's going to be profiting from it because all the other places are closed. Amazon's going to do great. I mean, you can look at any section. Exercise equipment will go through the roof as well. You can imagine that they are breaking records all over the place. And I've seen no figures yet. And I am imagining that they're actually going to be trying to keep those figures well under wraps. They don't want people to realise that Amazon are the big winners out of all of this. And the workers? The Amazon workers? What do they get? Nothing. They get sacked if they want to talk about their bad conditions, as we found out from a whistleblower in America recently. Yeah, they get sacked. Their drivers get treated pretty terribly. And by the way, the drivers who are in the trucks delivering the food up and down the country right now, they're getting treated like lepers wherever they go. They don't even see people now. They just put their keys into a letterbox and then get shuffled off into a room with half a dozen other drivers coughing and spluttering. They're getting treated terribly. Are the warehouse staff going to get a rise in the minimum wage out of this, do you think? Anything extra from the government, an end to these 0-hour contracts? You think they're going to get any of those? No, they've got butt piss. But with great crisis comes great opportunity. Because like I said, these people that we are now relying on, that are now the lifeblood of this country, they are now the people literally keeping us safe and keeping us alive and keeping us fed, are the very people that neoliberal policies have screwed mercilessly all of my life. And now the country is depending on them. I've got a little bit of a proposal for you. Strike. Don't you think it's time? Don't you think it's time to strike? I'm not talking about the health workers here. I'm talking about what they're calling essential workers. You know, the delivery drivers, the Amazon worker, the grocery store checkout person, the shelf stacker. You know, the real essential workers who have been screwed through neoliberal policies. Strike. Strike on behalf of the nurses and the doctors. If you want to draw attention to your cause, that's what you're going to that's what you need to threaten to strike for first. The nurses and the doctors, better wages, more equipment, better funding. And then when it comes to, if you get that, when it comes to actually striking for yourselves, then everybody's going to be supporting you. And I don't just mean with a round of applause outside. I think that is what they need to do. Because here's my opinion, and it is just my opinion, but they're not going to get anything, unless they do. Unless these workers strike and grab the power that they have an opportunity to grab right now. It won't be given them. It won't. The real workers in this country right now, in the world actually, they're the ones who have got all the power. All they need to do is grab it. Strike.